My name is Romy J. Beckbeck. I am a Filipino and a pastor for the Seventh-day Adventist Church here in Toronto. I'm heartbroken for what had happened to George Floyd. The reality is that this has happened to so many others as well. Then I hear about the protests, riots, and looting. It angered me to think that violence was used. As I reflected, I had to put it in my mind that when it comes to groups of people, that there's no singular train of thought for all of them. That there are some who are doing these things for personal gain, while others are actually protesting a fundamental flaw they see in society. I do not condone the violence, but I ask myself, if not these protests, then what? I couldn't think of anything else that has not already been done. Peaceful protests, petitions, speaking out, it seems like these are futile. And while I don't say that the violence is what I would have done, I'm just full of compassion. It's messy all around. Anyone who says they shouldn't do these things, I say, okay, I hear you, but what do you propose to be done? I would love to have conversations. Why am I making this video and saying these things? It's because God won't give me rest. He's convicting me in a way that I have to say something. It's because I've been silent for too long. I'm good at staying clear of the drama and lying low, even if I have emotions towards different things. It's because I look at myself and I ashamedly admit that I have racist tendencies. And if I can be brutally honest, so does the majority of the Adventist Filipino community. And this is the burden that God has placed in my heart. I attended an AY service last Sabbath, talking about what's going on, and the question was asked, what can we do about this? And while this was a broad question for the church, I took it personal. I thought to myself, what can I do? What has God given me? Where has God placed me that I can make a difference? And I'm convicted to share about the racism in our Filipino culture that is either overlooked or ignorant about its destructiveness. I don't know what it's like to be a black man in America or Canada, so I can only talk of what I know. Have I had racist remarks spoken to me? Of course. I've been called Chinese when I'm Filipino. People telling me ching chong ching. People telling me my food is disgusting, and even to go back to Philippines. And we can have this conversation some other time of how the Asian community is getting a lot of heat for the coronavirus. I'm not downplaying that aspect of life, but the burden of my heart right now that God has placed in me is the racism that's embedded in my Filipino culture. But Filipinos aren't racist, you say. Well, it depends on what you mean. Do you mean that Filipinos won't do what was done to George Floyd? Then maybe you're right. We won't murder black people because of their skin color. But if we really take a look at our culture, we have to admit that there is preferential treatment to those who are light-skinned as opposed to those who have dark skin. I understand that this is not every Filipino, but just based on my experience and myself, it seems like, I hope not, but it seems like it is the majority. I am racist. We are racist. I don't mean that in a way that lessens our humanity. I mean that we have been taught in our culture that there are varying values of human life based on our skin color. Personally, I think that many cultures are racist, as I have had racial slurs thrown at me by white, black, brown, and even Asian people. Here is my point. It may not have been your fault if you are racist, because this is the value system that we have been taught, but if you don't continue to grow and learn what is actually true, then you are at fault. Things that you are taught you have no control over. We may have been taught that light skin is beautiful, just like how 2 + 2 = 4. That this is the reality and we have to live with it. But this is error. It is your responsibility to better yourselves and to seek truth. The truth is that if George Floyd was the only one to sin, Jesus would have came down and do the exact same thing he did for all of us, because he loves us all equally. Try to think and recall of what you were taught when you were little when it comes to skin color. You may come to see that you have been learning a lie. Again, I'm not blaming you for this, but we have to learn what is true as the Bible puts it. I want to share with you some instances that I have witnessed and I've heard of how prevalent it is in our culture. When I was in Philippines, I studied there 2006 until 2011 for my theology degree. I was with my other theology major friends, and we have this one friend who is darker skinned than others. And as a joke, as an insult, he was called African. And everyone just laughed around him. I felt very uncomfortable, and shamefully, I didn't stand up for him. Friend, if you're watching right now, I'm sorry. Sorry for being a coward. You don't need to use skin whitening soap to increase your value. You matter. I looked at my friend and I seen the hurt and shame. He was someone who loved to joke back, but for this joke, all he can do was take it because he was dark. What hurts is that the shame that he had nothing to do with anything that he had done. We should not be ashamed of who God created us to be. That's just wrong. The last presidential election in the Philippines, I remember the vice presidential debate. And they made the candidates were there talking. And one of them, I don't remember exactly who, made a joke about Binay, who's running for president, about being dark. And everyone laughed about it. This was on national TV as our vice president candidates. No one thought it was inappropriate. Or maybe if they did, nobody said anything. The audience laughed, the moderators laughed, and the other vice presidential candidates laughed as well. I remember talking to some people, and I asked them how they would feel, how their parents would feel if they had a black boyfriend or girlfriend. And while some said their parents would be okay with it, others said that their parents would not be okay with it. Regardless if this is even true, the fact that the children thought this shows that something is wrong. So what do we do from here? How can we as a Filipino Adventist community grow? Well, first, let's acknowledge wrong. What was wrong with the situation with George Floyd? Say it aloud. He was not afforded basic human rights. The man said he could not breathe, and the ones in charge did nothing. In fact, they were causing it just because of the color of his skin. That is wrong, period. Now, let's reflect on our culture. Now, I'm not saying that we should bash our culture, and you might even think that I'm bashing our culture. You might even think that because I wasn't born and raised in the Philippines that I don't know what I'm talking about. And to say that, I say, okay. I acknowledge that there is a chance that I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But if you are thinking this because you truly believe it, then look at yourself. If you are saying this because you are afraid that maybe, just maybe, I might be right, then maybe we should stop and start to think about talking about the flaws that we have. Let's talk about it. I absolutely love our Filipino culture. But just because I love it doesn't mean that we can't be better and we can't grow. One way I think of it is to look at Ellen White. You know, I love Adventist history. And when we look at her of how she grows into truth, it's something commendable and something that we should do. You see, she first learned about the second coming of Jesus. She didn't learn about the Sabbath first. She learned about the second coming of Jesus. But she didn't stop there. Then she learned about the sanctuary even before the Sabbath. Then she learned about the Sabbath. Then she learned about health laws, and all of this spanning years and years and years. Was she any less of a Christian because she didn't keep the right Sabbath in 1844? In 1845, was she any less of a Christian because she ate pork? Of course she wasn't. She loved God and she was a godly person. But she grew. And we have to grow as well. Let's keep all the good in our culture, which are many. We are hospitable, loving, kind, talented, generous. Whenever I talk to non-Filipino Adventists, I'm so proud to share that I'm a Filipino. And they have so many fond memories about us. They talk about how they go to potlucks. They talk about how we're so loving. They talk about how our pathfinders are amazing. At the same time, let us look of how we can grow. You see, with the good, let's keep it up. God has been using us to be a light to other people. Have we been taught that light skin is beautiful and that dark is not? With all our skin whitening soap and the celebrities that only have fair skin, is this actually true? Where does our beauty come from? What does the Bible say about beauty? Is it not that beauty is found in our value in Jesus Christ? What has the media tell us about black people? Is it realistic to think that a group of young black men that are walking down the street are dangerous and might rob us? What makes us think that they are more likely to rob us than a group of young white men or young Asian men? Is there any validity to this? I have a lot of growing to do. I'm ready to be called out and to call out myself with the racism that I have learned and I'm still holding on to. God has been working on my heart. I told my wife last night that God won't give me rest until I say something publicly. So here I am, a sinner in need of Jesus to transform my thoughts and readjust my values. Lord, take away the lies I believe and fill me with your truth. I understand that I said a lot, and maybe you don't agree with some or even all of what I've said, and that's fine. I'm willing to be wrong. I hope that I am wrong. But let's talk about it. Silent no longer. I don't know what I can do to stop the racism that's happening here in North America today or even tomorrow. But if we can grow and learn, then maybe our future might look a little brighter after all. Will racism end before Jesus comes? Probably not. Because I believe that Jesus Christ is coming soon and that the state of this world is going to be going down. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive for it. Because it's not about being perfect. It's about our relationship with Jesus and those around us. To anyone watching that has had to deal with questioning your value or worth because of the darkness of your skin, you matter to me, and more importantly, you matter to God. Stay safe, everyone, and may God help us all.